You're listening to ESL Podcasts.
Welcome to ESL Podcast. So today you are with me, Sia Panupan.
And me, Span Yesmer.
Right. So today we are have an interesting topic from Ajahn Denchai, of course, in Thailand. So this is what the topic is: becoming English teachers in Thailand and student-teacher identity development during the teaching practicum. Span, have you ever seen yourself as a teacher, or have you had any experience as a teacher?
Yes, I have been to Chiang Rai once, and at that time I work as a volunteer teacher. And at the school, all the students call me as P Span. So sometimes, I do not believe myself as a teacher, and sometimes they do not respect me much because they call me as P all the time. And how about you?
Yes, for me, I have my tutorial school. So most of the time, there has a combination between crew and P. So I sometimes found myself as a between and between, of course. So do you have something to talk more about teacher identity?
Yes, exactly. Like in Thai context, teaching practicum will provide a great opportunity for student teachers to transfer their knowledge or theory that they learn in the classroom into the real practice. So at this present time, they can learn on how to adapt themselves to the student and know what they want to be in the future.
All right. So I think this is quite interesting, because in general, teacher, especially the student teacher, their identity oftentimes affecting their practicum that you has been previously mentioned. So I identify it mean identify identity is identify everything we do. For example, I think that the content we teach our student, the method we use, even the relationship between us and our student. So this is some kinds of previous research, make a
Yes.
stereotypes of the teacher because, and actually from the we as we are the researcher, one thing that we need to realize, Span, I think that we cannot assume that the in-service teachers, represent their student teacher or the pre-service teacher.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So I think that the teacher identity can be two types, as I have read this one before. I have read this one before. So the first one is a current identity and the imaginary identity. So what they are for? What are they from actually? So as I found that they form from life history, the belief in the teacher, and the image of ideal teacher. Right. So you have any question from this point that I told you?
Yes, as the Ajahn Denchai have conduct two research questions. The first one is about how was the development of the teacher identity shaped by the teaching practicum, and the second point that he mentioned is about how do student teachers overcome the challenges of the teaching practicum. Yeah.
I think this is very critical question.
Yeah, and interesting to buy. So in this research study, there are two types of participant. The first one is not me who took in the secondary school level, so she can be more autonomous. While Niti, he took in elementary school level, and there will be some teacher take control of him, so will become less independent.
Mhm.
And for the data collection in this research, the Ajahn Denchai used narrative case study to investigate the story of two students teacher, and there are two types of the instrument. The first one is semi-structured interview that he will ask the student to recall their past memories, to recall their experience during the teaching practicum. And the second instrument is shadowing observations, like he will learn about student teacher's life at the school, and when he observe, he will do a record observation by taking small notes. And and for the data analysis, there are two types again. The first one, after he finished or to collect the data, he will do like assign code to the data without previous framework, and then identify the relationship between those codes, and lastly, combine those categories into the theme. And after this step, he will compare the result between not me and Niti together and examine the relationship like similarity and differences in teacher identity development between these two cases. So I think the case study is really like interesting to explore about their experience in the school.
Right. So,
And and I want to talk about this because I think this is an interesting point because Dr. Denchai, he re-examined the theme again by reread the original data to check the original meaning. And then he composed mini story to represent each theme and see the storyline of teacher identity development. And the most important thing that he maximized trustworthiness by keep writing reflection to be aware of research subjectivity and also send the draft to the participant for a member checking process because like sometimes participants may not feel comfortable to review about their attitude or their opinions about teacher practicum. So some some negative comment can affect their future career. So sometimes if they do not feel comfortable to show, we can delete that information
right, I
later.
think this is a good idea, to protect the participants. So,
Yeah.
can you tell me what Ajahn Denchai found from like a student survey teacher?
For the first case, this is not me. Before she went to the school, she has a teacher identity that she wants to be a kind-hearted teacher who have a positive relationship with the student because in her hometown, she lives in the south of Thailand, and most of the people there do not want to be a teacher because of the crisis there, and she wants to help the community. This is her first teacher identity, and then she when she visits the classroom, her identity has been changed because uh it not like what she prepared. She prepared many kind of fun activity, but none of the student can respond very well because they are lack of enough English language background. So she failed in her first class, and for her first semester she have to consult with them her mother and other student at the school because she failed a lot and one of the reason why she failed because most of the student call her as sister or p not teacher. That's why she lose her teacher identity during the teaching practicum.
Right.
And and as you know that she also has a second chance
Hmm.
because in the second semester she tried to learn about how to deal with the student and she realized that all the students will love to learn with the teacher who are not afraid to be disliked, and so she was very successful to gain student trust and it is like effective.
Right. This is quite interesting. So it's
Yeah.
let me tell you about some yes.
And I can conclude that her teacher identity have been changed during the teaching practicum that she understand the complexity and flexibility of the teaching more and more. Yeah, this is about not me.
Right. It's interesting also. Okay. Let me tell you about Niti. So I'm not good in words, so I use my picture to, illustrate what I'm saying to you. So unlike Nami, he's totally different in my point of view, and as Ajahn Denchai mentioned. So he grew up in the teacher family where his mother is a teacher, of course, and even better for him because he was born in the like a teacher village where every household has one teacher in the family. So it's this time this he grew up in the social that make he was socialized that the teacher. So when he was about to enter to university, so actually he have no option to be a except to be a teacher because his mother forced to be that teacher. Right. So this is why when he come to the first time that he teaching, he was over the shadow of the in-service teacher. You know, the in-service teacher oftentimes, interrupt him when he teach in the class. That's why he lose a lot of his identity as a teacher. He doesn't feel at all that he is a teacher because he lose his confidence. When somebody interrupt you when you speak something, and like of course when you perform the teaching, right? So he found out that his opportunity has come because as a turning point of his life, because it has a New Year celebration where this in-service teacher disappear from the school, and he has the authority, the like kinds of full authority to be a teacher. So he found himself right as a teacher, of course, and he was called crew at the end. And he changed his mind from he doesn't want to be a teacher, and he finally end up with he proud with himself as teacher.
Really interesting.
Right.
Yeah, so like after we explore about to this case of two participants, I think the factor that led to the development of teacher identity during teaching practicum come from three aspects. The first one, emotional responses, and second, the type of teaching, and third, symbolic entity. And so, do you have any ideas about emotional responses from your case?
For my emotional responses, the emotional of I think that the emotional of these two students are deeply rooted in the practice of teaching. The way they're teaching, the emotional oftentimes affect and rooted in there, because the strong feeling after their teaching, their first classes has been changed through all the time, and after teaching, he feel like they feel not only Niti, of course, and that most of them feel like they are the teacher. They are teacher they want to be, and they could do better something in their career pathway or something. And one thing that I realized from, and I make the reflection as in this paper, that we grow by damage, not the edge. But sometimes we learn a lot of through experience or something else. We grow up a lot.
Oh, yeah. And for the practice that shape identity, like I observed from these two case study that when they attain in the classroom, everyday practice at the school, they have a chance to learn to adapt themselves, to resist and negotiate their own identity with the other people, like teachers and students, so they can learn which type of the teacher they want to be in the future. Yeah, right. And I want to add the last point about how they can overcome challenges during the teaching practicum. Like uh, from these two case studies, they use three strategies. The first one is psychological support from their peers, mentor, and family. Like if they fail, they will call them to ask for the advice, or technical support. Like in that me case, sh- her mentor asked all the students to call her as teacher or crew, not sister. So she realized that she is a teacher, and her identity have been developed. And the last aspect is about the willingness and effort, about how those students can overcome those challenges by themselves. And it is important for all of them to have a critical space to learn about themselves as a teacher, and they can be a better teacher in the future.
Right. That is very interesting points, especially, the psychological support.
Yeah.
So I think that we should do something more about that.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that we come to the point that we use the lenses of the researcher. So Span, do you have any point regarding this paper?
Yes, like in this study, there are only two cases, that is not me and Niti, and I think about teacher identity, we should explore more about students' perspective, or the teacher of the class perspective, or the administrator of the school, because we can ask them what kind of teacher they want teachers, student teachers to be in the classroom, so it can explore more view.
Yes, that makes sense. I think you nailed the right point. When a lot of time the teacher, doesn't live by themselves, especially they need to surrounded by many people around them.
Yeah,
So since you mentioned about two cases, so I think that we can, if in the further research, we might need to develop, our research by shifting to the another points of view. For example, quantitative research, to test out that the to enhance the power of generalizability. Because these two cases, we cannot do much about generalizability. So we cannot claim that all teacher or pre-service teacher would be the same. So in the future, we might test that what factors that which is similarity that this case has been found. Right. So what do you think about the paradigm?
Yeah, I think like the main paradigm is about constructivism because we will focus on the meaning that interpreted by two participants, not me and Niti.
Yeah.
And then we also have a transformative, like in your case that Niti, he was under control of the teacher in the classroom. So it is about the power relation between.
Right, right. I
Yes.
think this is you also knew the right point once again, Span. And of course, I think that constructivism, right, is a multiple views. I
Yeah.
agree with you. And one thing that I need to talk about is the contribution. Even though it is kinds of quantitative, right? Because if we are in the fields of SLAs, the applied linguistics, and English as a English language studies, we found that most of the research focus on the student, right? Like a
Yeah.
EFL, ESL learners. So this one, give us the new perspective, for the contribution. I think that it give us the new lens, the new contribution of the new research would be. For example, it would be the role models. Of course, I think the role model for the next research or the further research should conduct, whether to test the teacher, I think it is time to be fair, right? Because
Yeah.
we test a lot of students, this time we should test about teacher, how teacher thinks, right?
Yeah.
So as far as we come, Span, thank you very much for your participation. I'm very glad, even though COVID stopped us from everything, but we cannot stop us at all. Okay,
Thank
so
you very much.
right, bye bye everybody. สวัสดีครับ
Thank you ค่ะ